Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. How realistic is it that Putin will negotiate with Ukraine after the U.S. election? Let's talk about it with Dmytro Gordon. Dmytro, hello? Hi. Trump is a horror ending and Kamala is a horror with no end in sight. A few months ago, a Ukrainian official was asked who would be better for Ukraine, President Harris or President Trump. Now, Trump has declared victory and danced to a legendary song after his speech. What's your reaction? What should Ukraine expect? My response is simple. You know exactly what I mean.
Чего стоит ожидать Украине и что думаете вы?
Моя реакция главная, вы хорошо поете. Значит, что я думаю по поводу победы Дональда?
Let's fix the most important thing. 6 months ago, I said that the hot phase of the war would end this year. Many people laughed at me, called me a hype man, collecting likes, a fool, a moron, a critic, whatever. But I want to tell you that until last night, I was saying that the war will end. The hot phase of the war will end this year. I confirm my prediction. The hot phase of the war will end this year. Period. So you have to be respectful when people say things. I mean myself, in this case. It's not just taken from the ceiling. It's not written to me on the ceiling. This is a lot of work, a huge amount of meetings with people who know what they are talking about. These are politicians of the highest level from the United States, Great Britain, other countries, and finally Ukrainian and European politicians of extra class, plus the analytics that I receive from various sources. All this allowed me to say 6 months ago that the war would end this year. I'm repeating it now, the hot phase. Speaking of Trump's victory, it should be pondered by the citizens of the United States. They made their choice. The whole world should respect that choice. I am naturally most concerned about what will happen to my country after Trump returns to power. We can talk about this for a long time, but I have a feeling that Trump will be decisive. He, as a businessman, will offer a deal to Putin and Zelenskyy. Whether they will agree to it, well, there's no way out. Dmytro, former U.S. President Donald Trump once said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that he threatened Vladimir Putin to strike Russia. Obviously, if that happens, it's going to be fun in the boonies. Look what Zelenskyy is good at. He is not a systemic politician who was brought up in the bowels of political classes, who was trained in political science and diplomacy. He was able to win the elections in Ukraine because of this.
Гарантированная, очевидно, веселуха будет на болотах, если такое произойдет.
Смотрите, чем хорош Зеленский? Он не является, сейчас уже является, но он раньше никогда не являлся системным политиком, который воспитывался в недрах политических классов, который обучался политологии, политике и так далее.
Look at the way he's been behaving during this whole war. Few people can afford to talk like that to foreign leaders, to respected world figures. And he doesn't do it for himself. He demands, resents, insists, criticizes, resents. He says unflattering things, and he does it not for himself, but for Ukraine. This is exactly the style he chose because he was not trained in diplomatic academies. It's the same with Trump. He's a businessman. He's used to dealing with issues from a business perspective, as it's good for money. That's a good American approach. And thanks to this approach, he will solve all the issues concerning the war. Did he say these things to Putin? It's hard for me to say. He will settle all questions about the war. Whether he said those things to Putin, it's hard for me to say. Trump lies sometimes too. We know that too. Here, either way, he's going to have to say things to Putin that Putin sure won't like. Well, how else could he? Trump promised to end the war in 24 hours. Now we'll see. I have also said many times, all my public speeches, thank God, are on YouTube. Everyone can see and confirm them. I kept saying that first, the hot phase of the war will end this year, and second, that we will see the main events right after November 5th. November 5th has passed. Now it's time for bright, fast, unforgettable events. Everything, as I said, will develop with kaleidoscopic speed. Events will follow one after another. Everything will be fast, non-trivial. Not like we're used to this slow news. It's going to go downhill fast. How Trump will behave toward Putin? Let's see. I don't think he's going to please him. That's what it seems to me, and it's illogical. Why on earth would a man who has been suspected all along of having a special relationship with Putin, of having ties to Russia, would confirm those rumors? On the contrary, he would deny them. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte congratulated Trump, stating his leadership will be key to keeping the alliance strong. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called Trump's victory rhetorical, said he looked forward to working together. Trump was also congratulated by Moldovan President Maia Sandu, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Georgian President Saloma Zurabishvili, and Vladimir Zelenskyy. I will quote what Zelenskyy said. I appreciate President Trump's commitment to a peace through strength approach to global affairs. It is this principle that can actually bring a just peace in Ukraine closer. He also said that he hopes we will realize it together, and noted that he looks forward to an era of a strong United States of America under President Trump's strong leadership. We look forward to continued strong bipartisan support for Ukraine in the United States. Do you agree with these words and expectations, with what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said? And after that, you and I will discuss how Putin's propaganda in Russia reacted and what they said about it. Yes, Zelenskyy is right. The world has recognized the U.S. election results and will now congratulate Trump as the 47th president. Vladimir Zelenskyy is very precise in his wording. He wrote everything correctly. I think, by the way, that Zelenskyy and Trump have a special rapport. I am sure of it. They, as two non-systemic politicians, in many ways very similar to each other, understood each other in October in the United States. So, again, my prognosis is good. I think that everything is clear and straightforward, and we are on the eve of very positive events for Ukraine. Which ones? Because I saw a report, or rather a post from a member of the Russian State Duma, from a representative of Putin's United Russia, Yevgenia Popova, that Trump may lift restrictions on missiles and, on the contrary, increase aid to Ukraine. Regarding the missile ban, we hope it will be lifted to strike deep into Russian territory. I also want to comment on Dmitry Medvedev's recent words. As you mentioned in your telegram, it seems he's been celebrating Trump's victory since morning. In 2016, they celebrated early too. But Medvedev might not have even sobered up. Remember when he predicted Trump's fate would be like JFK's if he tried to stop the war? What is going on in the Russian swamps? What are they rejoicing about? How will not only Russian propagandists, but also dictator Vladimir Putin react? First of all, Russian propagandists are clinical idiots, that's a fact. Take at least Yevgeny Popov, Skobelyeva's husband. where in their pairing he is a she and she is a he.
Клинические идиоты.
All these months, by the way, it was in Skobiva's studio that the issue was discussed. And 8 years ago, they happily opened the champagne on the occasion of the victory of Trump, then the 45th president of the United States. They were very happy because there were rumors that Trump was allegedly recruited by the KGB and was always working with Russia. Then, Russian propaganda positioned him as our Russian Trump, who came to the White House, and now everything will be new. But they do not understand the main point and thus show their ignorance.
Но они тогда себя так вели, что наш русский Трампушка наконец пришел в Белый дом, и теперь все будет по новой. Они не понимают главного. Почему они идиоты? Я объясню. Потому что даже если бы Трамп...
Even if Trump had enormous sympathy for Putin and Russia, no one in the United States would allow one man to dictate foreign policy and make decisions contrary to America's strategic interests.
Стратегическим целям Соединенных Штатов Америки. Эту систему сдержек и противовесов в Соединенных Штатах заложили еще отцы-основатели. Она существует. Там невозможно, как в диктатурах, как в России или в Северной Корее или в Иране, чтобы...
The system of checks and balances established in the United States by the Founding Fathers exists and protects democracy. It is not possible there, as in the dictatorships of Russia, North Korea, or Iran, for a single leader, be it Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, to determine the course of the country. It is a democracy that has undergone many trials and learned from mistakes. There is no deviation from the established rules. They really should fear for their actions. And when Medvedev threatens Trump with JFK's fate, it looks like nonsense. I don't know if he's an alcoholic or just crazy, but judging by his appearance and head disproportion, it speaks for itself. There is essentially nothing to talk about Medvedev. Empty space. What matters is that even if Trump comes back, he will certainly act in the interests of the U.S. Not Russia, as part of the proposed deals. I'll remind you what I've been saying all these months. I haven't changed my view that Trump will approach the Russia-Ukraine war solely as a business conflict, as businessmen do. He has had to deal with business conflicts many times in his life, being a third party. So what does such a business conflict mean for a big businessman, a billionaire? For example, I do not call our war a business conflict. I speak in general terms. It is always a compromise. I have simply been present at such conversations and processes many times, and I understand how it happens.
Значит, вы поссорились, надо помириться.
So you had a fight, you have to make up, you have to compromise to do that, and you compromise. So that's Trump's main idea. That's what he's going to proceed from. What compromises can he offer? Again, I believe he will call Putin right away. He will call Zelenskyy. He will say to Putin, the war must end. This is the line of demarcation. Everything you have occupied up to this point, but the U.S. is no longer helping you. There is a new leadership in the U.S., and we will no longer help you. I offered you a compromise. You refuse. Decide for yourself. Let Europe help you. And if he calls Putin, and Putin refuses, Trump will say, okay, then I will give Ukraine everything it needs to defeat you militarily in 2 to 3 weeks. That will be the end of it.
Трамп, это я сейчас фантазирую, но мои фантазии очень близки к реальности, поверьте. Я знаю, о чем говорю. Трамп скажет, ок, боритесь до конца, но Соединенные Штаты больше вам не помогают. В Соединенных Штатах новое руководство, мы больше не будем вам помогать. Я предложил вам компромисс, вы от него отказываетесь. Решайте свои вопросы сами, и пусть вам помогает Европа. Что в случае, да, если он позвонит Путину, скажет это, и Путин скажет, что я не согласен с этими условиями, он скажет, хорошо, я тогда дам Украине все для того, чтобы в течение 2-3 недель нанести военное поражение России.
Speaking of Europe, you mentioned a piece in the Washington Post that said the United States' closest allies in Europe are preparing for a possible breakup of transatlantic relations if Trump wins the election. European politicians who have lived through one presidency say they are better prepared for a second one and are developing various security and trade contingency plans. However, according to the piece, they recognize that in some ways, Europe is less willing to deal with Trump now than it was before. Do you agree? Look what Trump has become famous for as the 45th president of the United States. His intransigence toward China. Chinese people, get ready. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. Trump realizes the main enemy of the United States of America is China. And if the U.S. wants to still be a strong country, it must do everything to put China's development on hold. Second, Trump sees Putin as a mere ally of China, an ally of Xi Jinping, and has always sought to drag Putin to his side to keep him from defecting to Xi. This is also important to understand. Regarding Europe, Trump has always stated, why do we have NATO and we are carrying the dishonest an unfair and disproportionate financial burden to maintain this organization? Why does the United States bear the lion's share of the financial costs and Europe does not? You are rich too, you have means. So let us as fair partners share the costs according to territories, population, GDP, and so on. So in this situation, Trump can say to Europe, Ukraine is on your territory, considers itself Europe, and you consider it Europe. By threatening Ukraine, Putin is threatening Europe and your security. So splurge, help Ukraine, and do whatever it takes to win. Why should we bear the lion's share of the financial and other costs? Will he say that? Of course he will, but only after his possible talks with Zelenskyy and Putin fail.
Но после того, как возможной неудачей закончатся его переговоры с Зеленским и Путиным.
Dmitry, let's talk a little bit more about Kamala Harris, because she might be offended. All we talk about is Trump, and we don't talk about her. She's probably listening to us and wondering if we should talk. Yes, let's just talk about what Politico wrote. If Russian dictator Putin doesn't want to end the war that has become the raison d'etre of his rule, he may be better served by Kamala Harris winning the U.S. presidential election. Putin has previously stated that he allegedly supported Harris at the urging of Joe Biden and because of her amazing laugh. Do you agree that a possible Harris victory could be more favorable for Putin? Given that Trump, as we know, and as you have said, promises to quickly end Russia's war against Ukraine, and Putin doesn't need that right now? To quote my opinion, my predictions don't disagree for a second with what's happening and what I've said before. If Kamala Harris were to take power, at worst, she would continue Joe Biden's policy of indecision. To him, by the way, I want to say thank you for saving Ukraine. Without him and Boris Johnson, Ukraine might not have existed.
В худшем случае она повторяла бы политику нерешительности Джо Байдена, которому я хочу сказать спасибо. Я всегда благодарю. Спасибо за то, что он спас Украину. Если бы не он, не Борис Джонсон, Украины бы не было. Поэтому спасибо.
Thank him for that. Whether he leaves or not is irrelevant. I always thank people who have done something for my country and for me. At worst, Kamala Harris would repeat Biden's indecision. At best, she would move forward a bit, but we shouldn't expect any drastic moves from her or the Democrats. As for Trump, yes, Putin has previously stated that he would be more comfortable dealing with Biden. Then he would say, we'd like Harris to be president. We'd like to do business with Harris. Was he lying? No. Interestingly enough, he wasn't. because the policy of indecision, fear, and red lines that the Democrats, especially Sullivan around Biden, were pursuing suited Putin just fine.
Особенно Салливан был этим известен в окружении Байдена. Она как нельзя лучше устраивала.
Trump is different, an unpredictable person. Today he will stand on his left foot and act like this. Tomorrow he will stand on his right foot and act differently. Besides, what's good about Trump? He is capable of doing things in world politics. There are hardly any people left who are capable of doing things.
А в политике, в мировой, практически не осталось людей, способных на поступки.
Here, I remember the 80s. Reagan, Thatcher, Kohl, and Mitterrand. These were people capable of action, especially Reagan and Thatcher.
Коль и Миттеран. Это были люди, способные на поступки, особенно Рейган и Тэтчер.
Now everyone is very careful, politically correct. We express concern, we express extreme concern, we express outrage, and so on. And it comes down to business, with a lot of stridency. As a businessman who has made billions of dollars, Trump's words are quick, and his deeds are just as quick and unconventional.
Слова быстрые и дела под стать словам быстрые.
You expect him to do one thing and he does another. You expect him to do another and he does a third. Today he acts one way, tomorrow another. Anything is possible. For Putin, Trump is a very uncomfortable client, and I think he regrets this happening. Dmitry, I'll quote what Trump said during his speech. They said he would start a war, but he stated, "I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars." Trump emphasized that there have been no wars during his cadence and said, "We haven't had any wars for 4 years, except for the fact that we defeated ISIL. We defeated ISIL in record time, but we had no wars." He also recalled the assassination attempt on him in Pennsylvania in July and added that God saved his life for a reason. Whether we will see it in words or in some actions, time will tell. As for Ukraine, we are waiting. Dmitry, about the Russians, they are betting on chaos, not on a particular candidate for the U.S. presidency. The Kremlin is concerned about a civil conflict or other form of internal crisis in the United States.
Или другая форма гражданского конфликта, и Москва действительно пытается сделать все возможное, чтобы американцы максимально не доверяли.
Moscow is really trying to make Americans distrust each other as much as possible, an expert of the Ukrainian PRISM Foreign Policy Council, Oleksandr Krev, said. How much do you think the Kremlin is interested in a civil conflict in the USA, and to what extent is it possible? Because chaos can really help the Kremlin distract the USA from the Ukrainian issue. Everything about creation and development, that's what we're about. They learned this from the Soviet Union, and they know how to destroy perfectly well. So, of course, the more chaotic, unplanned situations in different countries that are not close to Russia, the better Russia will rub its hands together. There will be no civil war in the U.S. The elections ended peacefully, and Trump is now promising a strong financial program, lowering taxes, and supporting businesses. When money flows, talk of war is unrealistic. This is all just fantasy and fear.
Ни о каких войнах не может идти вообще речь. Под шелест денег.
But Russia will also have a hard time economically, because look, I think that for a few months oil will be at $50 or $40. And Russia without oil is Russia without money, and Russia without money is Russia without war, and Russia without money and war is nothing at all. In general, let them get ready to ask the United States for Bush's legs. They already have no oil. They have problems with Turkey.
без войны это вообще непонятно что. В общем, пусть готовятся.
They import oil from there and from the United Arab Emirates. It's a shame. The oil-bearing Arab Emirates is not just a disgrace, it's a judgment. With so much money, idiots. They don't have oil anymore, and tomorrow they won't have any, because you don't have to do nasty things. Putin spent $1 trillion on war during his 10 years in power, from 2014 to 2024. $1 trillion. Do you have any idea what that amount of money is? By investing this money in the Russian economy, we could turn this backward country into a modernized, blossoming power with beautiful roads, wonderful medicine, new kindergartens, schools, and gasification of the country.
$1 trillion на войну. $1 trillion. Вы представляете, что это? За $1 trillion, влитых в экономику России, можно было превратить эту отсталую, тупую страну в модернизированную, в цветущую, процветающую вообще.
It's not like they're not gasified, and we're ending the era of wooden ones.
Детские сады новые, школы, газификация страны, они же не газифицированы. Окончание эры деревянных туалетов.
My God, for $1 trillion. He spent $1 trillion on war, on conquest, on coercion, on blood, on mud, on murder. What has he accomplished, you fucking geopolitician? It's all gonna come to a head now. He's had it, I know it, he's done for. But do the Russians see it?
Доигрался, но видят ли это россияне? Потому что уже 3 года почти полномасштабной войны, и почему-то все чаще мы видим видео.
Because it's been almost 3 years of full-scale war, and for some reason, we see more and more videos and opinion polls in Russia asking how you feel about the presidency and Putin. Everyone says very cool, classy, thrilled. As you said, there are no toilets, no roads, nothing, but everything is cool. Do the Russians see this? It makes no difference at all, because it is not the Russians who determine the fate of Russia. The fate of Russia is determined by the so-called elites, let's call them that, because it is also a mockery to call this rabble elite. Do the elites see that Putin's star is waning? Well, of course they do, because they are not fools. They understand everything perfectly well. The economy is falling apart. There are problems. Look, if you think it's easy for him to wage war, it's awfully hard for him to wage war. 12,000 North Koreans are not invited to fight against Ukraine when you have enough of everything. If things are going well, why beg for arms from Iran and North Korea? Or scrounge in Africa? Why hire foreign soldiers and offer your own $3,100 to sign a contract with 3 million rubles being offered in Belgorod region? Yeah, Americans don't get that much. American soldiers for a contract. Wow. So you give that kind of money and you can't get soldiers to the front. What does that tell you? That you're a loser. Your idea of war, of enslavement, of conquest, of the return of the Soviet Union, everything you've been saying with your filthy mouth all this time, turned out to be nonsense. Pure, unsubstantiated fiction. Life disproved it all. Now the reckoning is coming, and we have not long to wait. We will wait and believe that this payback will come, and we will see it. We have waited for a long time. We will wait for a short time too. Nothing will happen to us. We will wait. The main thing is that everything should be on merit. Dmitry, coming back to Trump, I would also like to bring up Elon Musk, because Trump threw a party in honor of the election. Among the invited guests was the billionaire founder of Tesla, and as expected, he held a meeting at Mar-a-Lago on election night with Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance. What do you think of Elon Musk? Because Trump, during his address to the people of the United States of America, praised Musk and his rockets a lot. I wish he would have brought up the rockets that will fly to Moscow, but so far we haven't heard or seen that.
Расхвалял Маска, его ракеты. Хотелось бы, чтобы он вспомнил про ракеты, которые полетят на Москву, но пока что мы
But trust that we will see it soon. Will Elon Musk be in the Trump administration or not?
Он будет в администрации Трампа или нет?
Clearly, he's going to be somewhere. Clearly, he's going to be one of the decision makers on the political moves of the United States of America. Do I like that? No, I don't.
Нравится ли мне это? Нет, не нравится. У меня к Маску плохое отношение. Со мной могут соглашаться, могут не соглашаться, но
I have a bad attitude towards Musk. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me, but he said and wrote things that I do not like, because in them he touched on Ukraine and did it badly. He has some personal sympathies for Russia, some love for Russia. It is absolutely incomprehensible to me how one can love this fascist subcountry. I don't understand it. And everyone who loves Russia is incomprehensible to me, and I don't like it. I will say right away, look, it is very fashionable to say that he is one of the decision makers in the US. I don't like that either, but that's my opinion. At the end of the day, the citizens of the United States made their choice. Me, as a person of democratic values.
оккупированному нашему Крыму Маск перекрыл тогда связь на Старлинках и помешал нам это сделать. Это раз. Второе. Маск постоянно пишет посты, какая хорошая Россия, какая плохая Украина. Может, мне это нравится? Нет, мне это не нравится. То, что Маск будет одним из принимающих решения в США, мне это тоже не нравится. Но это мое мнение. В конце концов, граждане Соединенных Штатов сделали свой выбор, и я, как человек демократических вообще ценностей, я их выбор уважаю.
Dmitry, here's RIA Novosti publishing various statements as we speak. Peskov said he was unaware of Putin's plans to congratulate Trump on his victory in the U.S. election. Further, Peskov, speaking about Trump's future policy toward Russia, said that possible speculation here is inappropriate. Peskov commented on Trump's peace statement, noting that in the Oval Office, they sometimes take on a different tone. He went on to say that the U.S. is an unfriendly country that is directly and indirectly involved in a war against Russia, Peskov said. Interesting, the first statement. He is unaware of Putin's plans to congratulate Trump on his victory in the U.S. election. Do you think he will congratulate Trump on his victory? He may or may not congratulate him. Rather no than yes. Why? Because Peskov said everything correctly. This is an unfriendly state. And if Putin congratulates Trump, everyone will say, and everything is clear, it's one gang-laying gang. So, most likely, he will not congratulate. We'll see. While we were all busy with the U.S. election, Ukrainian drones attacked the military port at Kaspiysk in Russia, where coastal forces units are based, hitting Ukraine with missiles. And about these strikes, how does that even affect Russia in the whole time of a full-scale war? If we're talking not only about these facilities, but also about car bases, airfields, and other facilities that have to be under attack almost always to stop this war against Ukraine, it's very bad for Russia, of course, when it misses such strikes. And it can't miss them, because all the air defense is involved in several strategic directions.
Для России это, конечно, очень плохо, когда она пропускает такие удары, а не пропустить она их не может, потому что все ПВО задействовано.
I'll tell you more, but it's no secret. All the world's intelligence services know about it. The biggest Russian air defense system is deployed to Moscow, to the Crimean Bridge, and to Putin's residence. That's it. The lion's share of this vast territory. I don't even call it a country. It's just like a sieve, Anything can fly in.
Львиная доля этой огромной территории, я даже это страной не называю, она просто как сито, как решето, туда залетай что угодно.
By the way, this was always the case when in 1987, a Cessna light engine airplane piloted by Matthias Rust, a citizen of the Federal Republic of Germany, flew in. Well, shit. Such a great country. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, such air defense, the best in the world. Suddenly Rust flew in, sat down not somewhere but right on Red Square in the heart of the capital Moscow, right by the Kremlin, sat down on his Cessna, and dumbfounded guests of Moscow. And Muscovites took pictures of him, those who had cameras at the time. It was a wonder of the world. A messenger of peace flew in, and he said, "I am the messenger of peace." So whole Russia, literally and figuratively, can't cover air defense? Everything. And of course we are and will continue to take advantage of that. I'll tell you another thing.
у Украины есть
that Ukraine has something to strike fear into the whole of Russia,
можно навести
including
страх на
Siberia.
всю территорию России, включая Сибирь. Я
I
не
didn't
этого
misspell.
не
I never
говорю.
misspell. Including Siberia, we have everything to do that, and if X hour comes, Russia and the world will see
И
something.
если настанет час X, Россия и весь мир кое-что увидят.
Кое-что это что?
Это то. Не имею права говорить.
You said in one forecast that Ukraine may soon strike Russian territory with its weapons, its missiles. We're not talking about American or Western missiles, we're talking about our own, right? Well, how do you think? Ukraine is a space country. Was until recently, Ukraine was a missile country.
Мы не говорим о американских, о западных ракетах, это о своем, правильно?
Ну, как вы думаете, Украина это космическая страна была до недавнего времени. Украина была ракетная страна.
I am not talking about the fact that the largest plant, which was headed, by the way, by the second president of Ukraine, Leonid Kuchma, is the largest missile plant in the world. But technology, labor, engineers, designers, those who still remember how it is produced, we have enough of these people. Believe me, Ukrainian engineering thought is working.
Но технологии, рабочие руки, инженеры, конструкторы, те, кто помнит еще, как это производится.
It's no coincidence that the lion's share
И поверьте мне, украинская инженерная мысль, она работает не случайно. Не случайно.
outstanding rocket engineers and designers in the Soviet Union were either Ukrainians or Jews. There were very few Russians there, if anything. Dmitry, we are all waiting for this prediction when the missiles are already flying on Russian territory. Now, some things may change about. Everything will depend on the further development of events in connection with the arrival of Trump. If an agreement in principle is reached, the missiles will not fly. If not, missiles. And not only missiles. I mean, far from just missiles. If no agreement is reached, everything that is available will fly.
Если не будет достигнута договоренности, полетит все, что имеется в распоряжении. А имеется многое.
Верим в это. Дмитрий, я благодарю за этот разговор.
Thank you for taking the time to chat. We've talked about a lot of topics today. The top topic is, of course, the U.S. election. I will remind you that we had with us Dmytro Gordon, journalist. Subscribe to Channel 24, Dmitry's YouTube channel. On Gordon's Guest, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. We wish our viewers a good day, a peaceful day, and see you later. Thank you. Goodbye.
Спасибо, до свидания.